Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
All right, you are here. You are ready. I am excited. Welcome to BTBJ. It is a joy to have you all here with us tonight as we welcome Shabbat together and as we kick off the celebrations of Sean Goretzky. And we are getting ready to celebrate with you tonight and tomorrow morning as you, believe it or not, become bar mitzvah. I don't know how that happened, but here we are. It's happening. It's happening. So we are going to, as we move through our service tonight, have a chance to settle ourselves in from all the different places and things that we had to do to arrive here this evening, whatever our week entailed. We are going to kind of acknowledge the journeys that we've taken to all be here in this moment together, celebrating, and to open ourselves up to the joy and the light of Shabbat. And so we do that by not only being blinded by that light, but we do that also by creating some light over here. Maybe it'll balance the light. So I want to invite up Sean and Deborah and Andrew to light our Shabbat candles. We're on page 4 in our Siddur if you wish to follow along. Matches. Can anyone do matches?
They're right there.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Amen. All right, Sean, I'm going to ask you to join Kenner Benjamin over there. The two of you can have a seat. And we turn to page 5 for Shalom Aleichem, where we welcome each and every week, whether we do so in our sanctuary or around our Shabbat tables, we welcome angels of Shabbat who come and bless us as we move through Shabbat together. And God willing, they find blessings by being with us. And then when it's time to say farewell, we send them off with blessing as well. And so we're grateful for all of you to be angels this week with us, visiting us for this Shabbat. And we hope you come in peace. And when it comes time to go, that you go in peace. May you find blessings while you're here. Go ahead.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh, Baruch Hu. Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMlachim HaKadosh, Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Ni L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMlachim HaKadosh, Baruch Hu. Tzedchem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMlachim HaKadosh, Baruch Hu.
Thank you, Sean. We continue on page 10 with Yedid Nefesh.
Yedid Nefesh of Harachaman Mishochav Tach Eritzonach Yarutz Avtach Emoaya Ishtachaveh Mo'atah
As we move through this beginning part of our service, which is referred to as Kabbalat Shabbat, we are meant to prepare ourselves to receive Shabbat. Because there are many things in life that, will happen whether or not we're ready for them. Ready or not, here it comes. But there's also a lot to be said for preparing ourselves for something that we care a lot about. So, like becoming bar mitzvah. The secret is that you become bar mitzvah when you turn 13, whether or not you do all this stuff. But we mark that in a really special way, in the presence of your friends and family. And in order to do that, you have to prepare quite for a long time, right? You didn't just wake up this morning and say, I think I'll become bar mitzvah tomorrow. No. Your parents, I think, had a little bit more planning, and you did too. And the same is true for Shabbat, that we are meant to be able to prepare ourselves for Shabbat each week, because Shabbat comes every Friday night, whether we acknowledge it, whether we're ready for it, whether we want it to or not. But when we prepare for it, and when we really kind of set our intentions on what Shabbat might bring to us and the gift that it is for us every week, then it can be that much more powerful. And so part of preparing for Shabbat means also thinking back and really acknowledging the ways in which we move through time. So as we think about our lives since last Saturday night, because Shabbat begins Friday night and ends Saturday night. So as we think about our lives from Saturday night of last week all the way up through tonight, the beginning of a new Shabbat, I want to invite you to consider what has occurred in your life. What are the moments for which you might be feeling particularly grateful for? Perhaps there are moments that were hard or difficult in some way, and you want to leave those things behind. And maybe there were things that brought you a lot of joy. Maybe it was something momentous, and maybe just a small little occurrence, but it still brought you a smile and brought you some joy or pride in some way. So we have this gift where we can do this every single week as we move into Shabbat. And hopefully you all had a chance to think about some of these things for yourselves. If anyone wants to share out loud, we would love to share in your gratitude and joy and support you in whatever you're doing. If anyone's feeling brave. Go for it, Andrew.
I was grateful that Sean volunteered to help us as we planned this week without us having to ask.
Amen. That shows a lot of maturity there. Yeah, Sean.
I'm grateful that all of my wonderful friends and family have came here today.
Oh. Amen. Yeah.
I'm grateful for having him as a cousin.
Oh, I love this love fest. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm grateful for being friends with him and getting to know him. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Do you have something?
I'm grateful that I got to be here on Tuesday night and watch Sean see his father practice his Torah portion.
Priceless. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm grateful that not only do we have a beautiful family with our 3 children here and our 6 grandchildren, but we have a larger family of cousins and nieces and nephews and sisters-in-law who have made and will be making a great effort to be here to celebrate as a family.
Amen. What a blessing. Yeah, Deborah.
I am grateful for the fact that many of my family members are able to be here and that they are in good health, particularly my parents. I know that many of my friends are not so lucky as to have parents in such great health that can be here and to put on a great dinner. And also that my niece Abby could be here too. Thank you all.
Amen. Yeah.
Of course, I'm grateful to celebrate another family, the B'nai Mitzvah. There's nothing better than that.
Nothing better.
These children grow.
Nothing better. I know. And to have an excuse to be able to come together in this way with the extended mishpacha and all the friends and all the family making the journey and taking the time is and having the ability to do so, whatever that might mean, health resources, whatever it is such a blessing. And it can be easy to kind of get an invitation and say, oh, that feels far away, or oh, I don't know if I'm available that weekend. But when you take the time to say yes And then you get to experience these moments. It is, I mean, it's making memories, and that's what it's all about, and supporting one another through whatever it is that comes our way. So let it be that there are many more joyous occasions that we get to celebrate around your life, Sean, and your families. And so you'll have lots more reasons to continue to come together in these configurations for many years to come. Amen.
Amen.
So we are going to continue with our service as we turn to page 14, and we'll pick up at that red arrow.
Yismechu hashamayim,
Hashamayim,
Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, v'tayeh haaretz. Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, v'tayeh haaretz. Yeram hayam, Yeram hayam, Yeram hayam, umelo. Yeram hayam, Yeram hayam, Yeram hayam, umelo.
We turn ahead now to page 23, and I want to invite Sean up to the bima to help lead us in Lecha Dodi.
Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, Hishmiyanu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, V'shem multiferet l'tila. Lecha,
Lecha
dodi,
Dodi,
Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki hi makor ha-bracha, Ne'or shmid kadesh nesucha, Sof ma'aseh b'machshavat tehila. Lecha,
Lecha
dodi,
Dodi,
Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Mikdash melech ir melucha, Kumitzei mitocha hafecha, Rav lachshevet be'emet habacha, Vehu yachmo alaychem la. Lecha,
Lecha
dodi,
Dodi,
Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala,
Pnei Shabbat nekabela. We turn to page 25 and continue with the second verse.
Yamin usmol tifroti, V'et Adonai ta'arati, Al yadish ben parti, V'nismecha v'nagila. Lecha,
Lecha
dodi,
Dodi,
Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela.
Please rise and face the door if you're comfortable and able to do so as we move to the final verse and symbolically welcome our Sabbath Queen.
Bo'i v'shalom ateret ba'ala, Gam b'simcha u'v'rtzochola, Tuch b'mnei am tzigula, Bo'i kala, Bo'i kala. Lecha,
Lecha
dodi,
Dodi,
Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei B'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lechadodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela.
You may be seated. Continue on page 27 with the Psalm for Shabbat. And we'll continue silently through to page 28 and come back together at the red arrow.
Tzadik atah yifrach eretz Lebanon iskeh shetulim b'beit Adonai b'chatzrot Eloheinu yachrichu od yenuvim b'seba Deshenim berananim iyun lehayin Yashar Adonai tzuri tzuri velo avlatabo.
We turn ahead now in our Sidurim to page 39. And hopefully we've had a chance to kind of warm ourselves up and to settle in. If you need to give yourself another minute to kind of arrive at Shabbat, yep, take a nice big deep breath. You can even take more than one, we don't charge. So hopefully now we're ready to step into our evening service. And so I'm going to invite you to rise again if you're comfortable and able to do so as we come together for Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Le'Mevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
You may be seated.
Baruch Adonai Asher V'Baruch Asher V'Tim Ma'avir Yomim Eimin Laila Ma'avir Yomim Laila Laila Tzivot Shemol Chem V'Kayam Tamid V'Chan Leila Leila Va'ed Baruch Adonai Hamari V'Ravim.
Amen. We continue on the top of page 40.
Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Ahavta Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadeta Akein Adonai Eloheinu Jochveinu uvkumeinu Nasiach bechukecha Nizmach b'divrei Toratecha u'b'mitzvotecha li'olam va'ed. Ihem chayenu v'yorech yameinu v'yorech yameinu u'vahem neyeh yomam v'layla yomam v'layla v'yavadcha Asir mimenu leolamim, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael.
Amen. We turn to page 41, and Sean will lead us in the words of the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol avcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol miotecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher Anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha v'bitecha u'vleftecha b'derech u'v'shoftecha u'v'tunecha u'kshartam liot al yadecha v'hayu totafot b'einecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'v'isharecha.
Continue silently to the bottom of page 42. Sean.
Adonai Elohechem Emet.
We continue at the top of page 44.
U'malchut Tovaton Kelu Alehem Moshe Umeri Avnei Yisrael Chon Asher Absimcha Rabav Yamru Kolam Mi Chamocha Ba'elim Adonai Mi Chamocha Nedar B'Kodesh Norati Lodo Sefer Malchut Charuvanecha Bokein Lifnei Moshe Zelu V'Yamru Adonai Yimloch Le'olam Va'ed Remah Yevadah Adonai Yaakov U'goloi miyad chazak mimenu Baruch et Adonai Ga Yisrael.
Amen. We turn to the top of page 45 for Hashkivenu, our evening prayer for peace and protection. And as we sing the words together, 3 lines up from the bottom in both Hebrew and transliteration, those words are Ufros Aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha, and we implore that a sukkah of peace, a canopy of peace, be spread over us and over all who need it in the world. And so as we sing these words together, I invite you to hold in your mind and in your heart all of the individuals and groups of people all over the world, both close by, people we know, and people who might feel or be further away from us, who might be in need of this canopy of peace to be spreading over them in this moment. Maybe it's just having a safe place to put their head down at night. Maybe it's a prayer for peace in the midst of war, and we especially think about those living through the war in Israel and Gaza at this moment. Whoever it might be who is suffering, I invite you to hold that person or those people in your minds and in your hearts. If you're a person who's in need of a little extra right now, a little extra peace, a little extra healing, a little extra something, then you can also take these prayers in yourself as we send them all out, and we hope the energy lands wherever it is needed.
Ufros Aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha Ufros Aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha Baruch Adonai Haborei Sukkot Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Amo Yisrael V'al Yerushalayim.
Amen. We turn to page 46, and I invite Sean back up to the bima to lead us in the words of Vishamru.
V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'doratam b'rit olam. B'nei Ruvain b'nei Yisrael oti li'olam, oti li'olam, oti li'olam. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'doratam b'rit olam. Ki sheisha yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim v'et ha'aretz v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'doratam b'rit olam. Uvayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'doratam b'rit olam. Yitkada v'yitkada shmei rabbah
Amen.
B'yamad yivra kirtei v'yamlich malchutei V'chayechonu v'yomechum Uv'chayei dekol beit Yisrael Bagala bagala V'imeru.
Amen.
Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach. V'yalam Li'al Me'omaya Yitbarach. Yitbarach. V'yishtabach. V'yitba'ar. V'yitraman. V'yitnaseh. V'yitadar. V'yitaleh. V'yitalal. Shemei Dekudashah.
Rihu.
Le'ela min kol birchata v'shir antam. Tush bechata v'nechamata. Damiran ve'alma. V'imeru.
Amen. We turn now to page 47, and I want to invite you again to rise if you're comfortable and able to do so. And we're going to move through from 47 to 52, the Amidah at your own pace. And so if you want to move through in English or in Hebrew, either is fine. If you want to take a moment for quiet reflection, that is also welcome. We'll come back together at the end with a prayer for peace.
Say shalom imromav, Oya say shalom aleinu, Ve'al Yisrael, V'imru, amen. Ya say shalom, shalom aleinu, Ve'al Yisrael, Ya say shalom, shalom aleinu, Ve'al Yisrael, V'imru, amen.
We remain standing as we turn to page 53 from Ein Sheva.
Vayecholu hashamayim v'haaretz v'chol tzivam, Vayechal Elohim bayom hashvi'i melachto asher asa, Vayishpot bayom hashvi'i mikol melachto asher asa, Vayevarech Elohim et yom hashvi'i, Vayikadesh oto, Hivo Shabbat mikol melachto asher bara Elohim lasot. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon Konei Shamayim v'Haaretz, Magen Avot Bidvaro, Mechaye Metim B'Mamaro, Ha'el Hagadosh She'en Kamohu, Hariniach Le'amo B'Yom Shabbat Kodsho, Kivam Ratzah Le'aniach Lahem, כי בם רצה להניח להם, לפניו נעבוד ביראה ופחד, ונודה לשמו בכל יום תמיד, מאוד הברכות. אל ההודעות, אדון השלום, מקדש השבת ומברך שמי, ומניח בקדושה, להעמיד שני עונג, זכר למעשה בראשית.
Top of 54.
אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו רצה במנוחתנו, קדשנו במצוותיך ותן חלקנו בתורתך, שמנו מטובך ושמחנו בישועתך, וטהר ליבנו לעבדך באמת, והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה וברצון, שבת קודשך וינוחו בישראל, מקדשי שמך, ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת.
We continue with Kaddish Shalem.
ירבי ירש מרבם, ימד יברח ירטב ומחמח ירטב חייכנו וימחנו וחייתו בישראל, בגדלה זמן קריבים רו, אמן יהיש מרבם מברך, יעלם לימי המאיה יתברך, יתברך וישתבח ויתואר תרם ינסה ותדר ותלב ותלש מרושע בריחו, ליאל מכל ברכת וישורת שתשבחת ונחמת אדם ירם ימה וימרו, אמן תהיה בצלות הונו ויותקון לכל ישראל, קדם הונו ישמע וימרו, אמן יהי שלום רב משמיה וחיים עלינו כל ישראל וימרו, אמן עושה שלום רמה ויעשה שלום וכל ישראל וכל שמני וימרו,
Amen. You may be seated. I want to take a moment before we continue with Kiddush to take a quick look at our Torah portion for this week. So, Sean, do you remember the name of the parsha? V'ha'alotecha. It's a mouthful, and he's got it. So there are a lot of things that happen in this week's parsha, and Sean will talk to you about some of them tomorrow. But I wanted us to kind of take a look at this sort of one moment in the parsha, in part to think about sort of when it's happening and also what's happening in the moment. Okay, so we are now in the book of Numbers, which in Hebrew is called Bamidbar. And this is the third parsha in this week, so this is the third week in a row that we're reading from this particular book. And the one that came before was the book of Exodus. So there's a really important thing that happens in the book of Exodus. What is the big important thing that happens? Yes. Excellent. So the Israelites were slaves in Egypt, and they leave. So we are now somewhere, but let's see, Beha'alotecha starts, I think, in like chapter 8 in the book of Numbers. And ever since we were in Exodus chapter 19, many chapters ago, we have been reading about this story where the Israelites left Egypt and they were finally free. And then we know that we know of several of the things that happened. So they crossed the sea, the Egyptians who run after them, but then they get to kind of be free and go to the other side, and then they start wandering in the wilderness. There's another really big thing that happens once they start their wandering, and we get a very special gift from a very special entity. You can. Okay, so we get not only the Ten Commandments, we get the whole Torah from God. So as the Israelites leave, they find their way at the foot of Mount Sinai. We just celebrated this a couple weeks ago at the holiday of Shavuot, and they receive the Ten Commandments and everything else that comes from there as well. Okay, so they are encamped for a really long time at Mount Sinai, and it is in this week's parsha that Sean was reading about some of the instructions that the Israelites are getting for how it is that they can finally pick up and make their way. Because the goal wasn't to end at Mount Sinai, was it? No, the goal is not to end at Mount Sinai. Where are they actually trying to get to? Promised land. Excellent. Israel, the promised land. They're trying to get somewhere else. So they've been at Mount Sinai for a little bit of time. How long do you think they've been there? Yeah. So they will wander in the wilderness for 40 years. They haven't been punished yet, though. James, do you know how long they've been there?
It took Moses 2 days to receive it.
Okay, so Moses was up on the mountain for some time, but believe it or not, the Israelites have now been camped around Mount Sinai for almost a year. So it has been quite a lot of time since they first left, since they wandered their way here, and now they're packing up to go. And there's a whole elaborate thing that they learn of, like, there's this cloud, and when the cloud rises, they know it's like God, and it's God telling them it's time to go, and they follow the cloud, and that's how they know where to go from there. But in the Parsha, we also get very specific instructions, right, about there's horns and all sorts of things about what happens, how the people are going to know how to pack up, and they all have very specific instructions about who's carrying what so that they know how to get there. Okay, so at the end of chapter 10, the people, after being in this spot around Mount Sinai for almost a year, they're finally going. So they were told how to do this. They were told what they were going to need to do in order to be alerted, in order to actually pack up, make their to-do lists, all of that, and go. And so they learned about it, and then they actually did it. It's kind of a big moment. What do you think is the very first thing that happens next? Could be anything. Benji, do you have an idea? No? Okay. It's a tough question. What do you hope happens next? What do you hope happens next? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. You don't think it was a good thing? Okay, all right. You're sensing something in the text. Okay, so there are going to be a lot of not so good things that happen. And so you're actually hinting at something really important and big that happens. Because there's not once, but more than once, do the Israelites complain about being thirsty. And that's what punishes them, and they end up needing to wander for a long time. So in this particular moment, it wasn't about water, though it could have been. But you are right, my friend, because the very first thing that they did, they complained. They complained. The golden calf already happened. So they already made that mistake. That was another big mistake that they made.
That was a book.
Yeah, it was a couple chapters ago. Okay, so they finally get the instructions. They're going on their way. It's very exciting. And then they stop. They figure out where it is that they're going to stop. They halted, and there's special things that are said. And then the very next things that it says at the beginning of chapter 11, the people took to complaining bitterly before God. God heard. Do you think God was happy? God was not happy. God was incensed. Okay, this part's a little scary. A fire of God broke out against them, ravaging the outskirts of the camp. So think about the very edges of the camp, because there's over 600,000 people here. But at the very edges, there's a fire. And imagine what a fire must feel like, kind of looking at the edges. If you're at the outside, that's really scary. If you're at the inside, also really scary. And the people cried out to Moses. Thank God Moses was there. Moses prayed to God, and the fire died down. Okay, this God is a pretty angry God sometimes. So that place got a name because this very intense thing happened there, and this fire broke out against them. Okay, so what do you think happens next? We already know they're complaining people. Okay, so the next thing that happens is there is a group within them. It says, it's translated in some places as the riffraff, which is a very strange thing it's not what it says. It's like the mixed multitude, the people who are gathered. The gathering felt a gluttonous craving. They had a desire of some sort. And the Israelites, so they had a desire, and then the Israelites wept. So there were some people who had this desire and other people who wept. What do you think that they were complaining about? It wasn't water this time. Food. Yeah, what Jews? Complaining about food. If only we had meat to eat. And Sean and I talked about this piece a little bit. If only we had meat to eat. We remember the fish that we used to eat in Egypt. We had cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic. Are they forgetting something about their time in Egypt? They were slaves. Now, our stomachs are all shriveled up. There is nothing at all, nothing but manna to look to. Okay, so the Israelites, we kind of skipped over this part, but as the Israelites were traveling in the wilderness, there was this like magical food that fell from the sky. I would be thrilled if magical food fell from the sky and I wouldn't have to go to the grocery store and think, what are we eating for dinner tonight? Magical food fell from the sky every single night, and so they always had enough to eat. But it seems like, I guess like you could have too much of a good thing. Like I love pizza, but I probably wouldn't want to eat it like all day, every day, maybe. That's how they're kind of feeling about manna. Okay, so this is the very first scene, this fire and all of this complaining that happens as they are picking up from Sinai and going off on their own. So what is happening? Why do you think this is how they're feeling? Why is this what they're saying? Where is this coming from? What might you have been feeling in this moment? If you could imagine yourself and sort of place them in their shoes. Yes?
I think they were feeling like that God promised them this land, and then they had to walk so long in this desert without anything to eat.
Okay, so I think that's awesome. So can you tell me your name? Teddy? Awesome. So Teddy said that they were kind of on their way to something really great, but maybe like they didn't really read the fine print when they were leaving Egypt, right? Like they were just like, do you want to be slaves? Nope. You want to be free? Yep. All right, follow this guy. But they didn't really know what it was going to be like. So they didn't know how hard this was going to be, how long it was going to be. Yeah?
It's like build the pyramid, to go like look for like a place where
Right. And so even when things were really bad, maybe they had some things that were assured to them. They didn't have a nice place to sleep, but they had a place to sleep. They had to work really hard, but they didn't need to walk all day. There were certain things that were maybe good and certain things that were not so good. And now it is really different. So, okay, so maybe they're a little justified in their complaining. That could be. What else might you have been thinking, or what kind of questions do you have about our text? Marcia.
I think they needed order to their lives,
Okay.
like a calendar of lives.
Okay. So we're kind of asking a lot of them, right? When we go to school, or when our kids go to school, they kind of know what to expect. You have an order of the day. And I know my kids and some of you are starting camp on Monday, and already, like I have from the camp, like this is what they're serving for lunch each day, and these are the special days that they're having. And as soon as you get there, you're going to find out from your ADA, from your unit, what's happening each day. So you'll know when you have swim and when you have lunch, and we need to know that. All people need to know that. Some people really need to know that, but all people benefit from knowing that, and they had no idea what was coming. Not only did they not have a calendar of their day, they didn't know what was happening from one day to the next. I mean, Shabbat, I guess, is the exception. Again, yay, Shabbat. But that must have been really hard for them. All right, what else? Anything else that you think they might have been thinking or feeling? Yeah, Benji?
probably annoying to be out like they were probably like, God lied to us, or
Okay. So they don't know what's coming. So they might have been a little annoyed. And there are a lot of commentators who say the same thing. That it is quite, they have been kind of hanging out at Sinai for almost a year. That was a pretty unbelievable and magical place where they just were. I mean, the way it's described, it actually says that they heard lightning and saw thunder, which is opposite, right? We're supposed to see lightning and hear thunder. But everything was kind of mixed up there, and it was so intense because they kind of had this like an immense closeness with God. And whatever it is that they experienced there, it was like the most spiritual, unbelievable experience that maybe anyone had ever had up until that moment. And they were kind of hanging out in that place for a really long time, and now they left. So how hard must it have been for them to have gone from being slaves to this really intense spiritual experience, to this like closeness with this being that they're calling God, who's giving them everything that they need, and now they're kind of on their own. And so what the commentators talk about is that perhaps when it says in the text that they all of a sudden kind of didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to be. That when it says that they kind of had this desire and this craving for like food and all of these things, they were trying to figure out how to kind of come back to regular life after something really awesome that's happening. So, it's like what Sunday's going to feel like after your bar mitzvah, perhaps. But how to come back from something really awesome where you look forward to it, and then it can sometimes feel like a little bit of a letdown afterwards. There is a great book by Jack Kornfield, which is called After the Ecstasy, The Laundry. Because sometimes we have these really amazing things that happen, and it can be for a really long time, like almost a year, like being at Sinai, or it can be in a moment where we just sort of get to see someone we haven't seen for a long time or celebrate with our family and friends. And then when we got the next day and, time to go food shopping, there's always laundry. There's always laundry. And then we have to kind of get back to the mundane stuff. And so that's kind of what the Israelites were dealing with in this moment. And so, you can understand maybe, if you want to, why God might have been angry. Like they just had this incredible connection and this like covenant that they made, and now the people so quickly kind of, it seems, to forget about that. And so that makes God angry. I'm not saying that we should have an angry God, but okay, God got angry. And you can also maybe understand where the people are, because all they want is a little bit of order. All they want is to have a better understanding of what's happening, and maybe to seek out and find a little bit of balance, because they've had this intense connection, and now they're sort of afraid, perhaps, of where they're going to end up. And so there's a hope that they can kind of, I guess, along their journey and along our journeys, we might find ourselves, in some of those really intense moments of connection, and then we can sometimes find ourselves in a moment where we can easily feel a little bit lost or disconnected. But perhaps our goal in life is to just find out and figure out what we need to seek that balance. So maybe having that balance means knowing what to expect in different situations so that we can be present and ready for whatever it is. Maybe it means that we kind of like figure out, how to kind of keep some of those desires in check. It's okay to have them, but to figure out how to keep them in check. And Aviva Zornberg writes about this piece that actually this was the first time that they were really awakening to kind of being people again in some ways. And she says that the wilderness experience is this kind of, it sort of taps into this very passionate love, between the people and God, and this infinite desire between them. But it can also be a very difficult and challenging place to be. And so trying to figure out how to navigate that is what we're going to see the Israelites doing for the next several chapters as we move through Torah. So I want to just end with a piece from Rabbi Josh Feigelson, who shares with us, if I can find it. So he says, what do we do with all of this? And he says, how do we align what it is that we want with what it is that the divine wants from us? Because that tension is kind of at the heart of what's happening here. And so his advice is he said he would suggest kind of pointing toward an enlightened awareness, one that is cognizant of everything that we need, everything that we want in our own lives, and also that acknowledges the holy purpose that each of us perhaps are here to fulfill, and to develop disciplined relationships where we can kind of seek out and connect with God, but that divinity is both something outside of us and inside of us. And perhaps when we remember that, then we don't have to just cry out and complain outside of ourselves for something to change, but we can also look within and figure out the ways in which we have the power to sometimes change our own situation as well. So I always find this particular piece of text a little challenging, both with the angry God that is sort of portrayed here and with what feels like a very ungrateful group of people after they've experienced so much and in the midst of so much. But I think that we redeemed them a little bit tonight by kind of putting ourselves in their shoes. So there's always a lot to learn from our Parsha, and Sean will share a little bit more tomorrow. So good thing you're going to come back tomorrow morning. So we'll return to our service, and I want to invite Sean back up to the Bima and have us turn to page 55, and he's going to lead us in Kiddush. So go grab the Kiddush cup over there and head over to Kendra Benjamin's side. Go over to over
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Bore Peri Hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, v'ahava uvratzon, hinchilanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit.
Yom Tehillah Mikrae Kodesh Sefer Yetziat Mitzrayim Kivanu B'Charta Yotanu Kidashta Mikol Hamim V'Shabbat Kodsha V'Ahava Uvratzon Hinchilanu. Baruch atah Adonai v'kadesh ha-Shabbat. Amen. L'chaim. We turn to page 56, and I invite you to rise for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'jon hakol, l'teit gedula liotzer breshit, v'lo asani k'goyei haratzon, v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adamah, shelo sam chatenu kahem, v'gor aleinu k'chol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'motim, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. We turn to page 58 as we come to the Mourner's Kaddish. This week in our community, we observe the yardsite, the anniversary of the passing of Shirley Abrams, Ray Barrow, Abraham Brown, Edith Kobat, Louis Kramer, Dr. Jack Ersner, Esther Fisher, Anna Forstatter, Juliet Fox, Jay Harris, Libby Kaner, Daniel Kelman, Joseph Eliezer Klug, David Kugler, Samuel Littman, Abraham Edward Miller, Aaron Richmond, Jules Rosenberg, Erwin Sandos, Goldie Schwartz, Francis Schwartz, Joseph Shore, Goldie Shore, Samuel Solomon, Milton Stander, Fanny Toll, Solomon Lewis Weinberg, Ella Weinstein, Harry Weisberger, and Janice Wexelblatt. I invite those who are currently in mourning and reciting the Mourner's Kaddish or observing a yahrzeit to rise, along with those who might wish to rise in support of the mourners or for those who have no one to say Kaddish for them. Yizgadal v'yizkadash shemei rabbah v'yalma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye d'chol beit Yisrael v'agala uvizman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevarach li'olam ulomei omaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei tekudasha b'richu ne'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ta'amiran b'yalma v'imru amen Yehi shlomo rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen Oseh shalom v'imromav Huya aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, imru amen. May the one who creates peace on high bring peace to us and to all Israel and to all who dwell on earth. And we say together, amen.
Amen.
Well, we will be back here tomorrow morning at 9:30 as we celebrate with Sean, as we welcome you to the Bima to become bar mitzvah. And there are a number of other things coming up in our community. We join all summer on Zoom at 9:30 on Sundays and 7:30 on Thursdays for Minyan, if anyone ever wants to join us. Our men's club has 2 softball games coming up. Are either of them nearby, Josh? Okay, so that's not far. So both at 6:15 on the 24th and 27th, if you want to come cheer on or play with our men's club softball team. I don't know if cheer on. Okay. And next Friday night, we will not be here, but we will be in Ventnor, New Jersey. So if you are there and want to come join us, we will be joining with Congregation Shirat Hayam for a Friday night service It is called Devotion by the Ocean, and it meets behind the Ventnor Library, I am told. And if you're coming, let us know, because Lisa and Matt Schwenderman are sponsoring an oneg afterwards, and we would love to see as many folks as possible there. So that starts at 5:30 on Friday night. Services here Saturday morning as usual. And then those who are interested in picking up some learning with me this summer, that will kick off on Tuesday, July 2nd. Stay tuned for information that we'll send out early next week after Shabbat if you'd like to sign up. Anything else on your, nope. Okay. So we will end with a little blessing for all of you and some motzi. And we have a tradition every Friday night, actually it was just in our Parsha last week, the priestly blessing of parents blessing children with these very ancient words. And so if you have a loved one near you and you wish to put your arms on their heads or around them, if you have loved ones that are not so close by and you want to just think about them to send them this blessing, that also works. It can be sent cosmically if we so choose. And we join together for the priestly blessing. May God bless you and protect you. May God's face give light to you and show you favor. May God's face be lifted toward you and bestow upon you peace. Let it be God's will. Amen. All right, Sean, can you come help us to do motzi? Ta-da. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Te'avon. Shabbat shalom. If you want challah, come and get it.